Welcome to the webinar. And Sylvia, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much, Deirdre. I'm Sylvia Mom with the Groundwater Protection Council, and we're here today because the Groundwater Protection Council is really committed to protecting groundwater sources of drinking water, and as a member of the National Source Water Collaborative, we've been participating in a groundwater discussion group, and we're really pleased to have Chuck Jobe here, the Regulatory Affairs Manager from the National Groundwater Association, and he'll be talking to us about wellhead protection, a first line of defense, why it still matters in 2026. Next slide. So the Source Water Collaborative now has 31 members. We were formed 20 years ago, last January, and we have a lot of activities going on our website. You can check it out at sourcewatercollaborative.org, and please sign up for our updates if you are not on that list. We're really pleased that the National Groundwater Association is a member, as well as many other organizations like the Association of Drinking Water Administrators, where we have Deirdre White, and the Environmental Protection Agency, where we have Kyra Jacobs on the line, and many other organizations that are committed to protecting sources of drinking water. Next slide. And this timing is really perfect because next week we have National Groundwater Awareness Week starting, and you can find more details at this website link from the National Groundwater Association. And we'll be doing another webinar, which I'll be telling you about in a minute, also in March. Next slide. So some webinar instructions. Put your questions in the chat. The webinar is going to be recorded and posted on the Source Water Collaborative website with the presentation slides at this web link. And I would recommend you look there. We have a section called Resources and Webinars, and you'll find a lot of information there. And we have a special section for groundwater. March 24th, coming up, our next webinar is going to focus on groundwater protection in Vermont and to hear from the experts on the ground there. It'll be March 24th from 12 to 1 p.m. Eastern, and we'll have Brad Roy, the source water protection specialist, and in a town in Vermont, and also Liz Royer, who's the executive director of the the Vermont Rural Water Association, and Kyra Jacobs will be the facilitator. So please sign up for that one. We'll have details on how to register on the Source Water Collaborative website under the news highlights. Okay, so Chuck, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I didn't give a lot of details on your bio, but we've worked together since we were at EPA, and we really appreciate your expertise in groundwater and your dedication and your help in the groundwater discussion group. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Sylvia and Deirdre. I wanted to, first of all, thank all of you that are listening to this for helping kick off Groundwater Awareness Week with this presentation, and certainly want to respond to any comments or questions you may have at the end of this presentation. So thank you very much, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. So I wanted to present this, why wellhead protection still matters in 2026. Why wellhead protection? It originated, the concept was incorporated into law in the 1986 Safe Drinking Water Amendments. Although there were some states, California, New Jersey, Vermont, and some others, who actually had taken a similar approach earlier than this time in focusing on groundwater protection. The Wellhead Protection Program sets procedures for protecting public water supply wells from contamination before it happens. 76% of the community water systems in the United States, that's over 37,000 water systems, use groundwater. And 96% of that 76% are small and often under-resourced. Many community groundwater systems discovered chemical contamination in their water systems in the 1970s, and eventually, unfortunately, became Superfund sites because of that. So, question for today is, what has changed? Well, why is wellhead protection still significant in 2026? Certainly more urbanization, more chemicals, significant drought. So there's a number of reasons that we need to continue to focus on protecting our wells and groundwater. Next slide. So there's 7 core elements in well protection, and many of you are aware of these. Certainly, this is in that regard a review, but just quickly to run through, roles of agencies are important. Delineation of the well protection area, contaminant source and inventory, identifying management measures, contingency planning, proper siting of new wells, and public participation. It's not a prescriptive approach. It has a lot of flexibility, and the communities have taken that flexibility and implemented it. I've got some discussion questions that we can come back to, but you might just consider which of these are the hardest in your current experience to keep up with. Next. So 30 years later, what has changed? Groundwater use is increasing 2.7 times from 1950 to 2015. Urban development, 15 million acres have been converted over the time since 2000 to urban and suburban use. And there's potential recharge changes that occur with that, that land conversion. Superfund sites started with 406 in 1983, and in 2024, 1,340. One issue in Superfund is, are the sites being remediated completely, which certainly has happened at many sites, or are they under institutional control? And that's an issue for some communities that rely on groundwater and relied on the groundwater that was contaminated. Institutional control basically precludes them from using that groundwater that was contaminated, and the groundwater remains in that contaminated state with the expectation that the chemicals would degrade over time. Superfund sites cost can range from 24 to 170 million based on information available, including PFAS. It could be even more with PFAS. 42,000 active chemicals. And another point that is worth making is that EPA policies have favored stormwater infiltration to protect streams, lakes, and other surface waters. But that infiltration, that stormwater infiltration, can affect groundwater quality if that happens in the capture zone of the community's wells. So, which concerns are biggest today? More contamination, or water supply risks from land use, or residual management changes? Something to think about. Next, please. Historical roots. The program is modeled after the 1979 European Union Groundwater Protection Directive. As we noted earlier, it was authorized in the 1986 amendments to the Safe Drinking Water Act. It evolved from there. By 1995, over 40 states had programs approved, wellhead protection programs approved, and that made it finally to all states that had programs approved. There was a funding gap, though, in implementing, as many of you are aware. $20 million was authorized originally in 1986, but none was ever appropriated in Congress. And fortunately, other funds were being able to use that addressed sources of contamination and managing those. Early benefit cost estimates showed that $7 of benefit for $1 of local program money spent for wellhead protection. Modeling has evolved over the years, including groundwater flow, and effective porosity of the aquifer, pumping rates, aquifer thickness, and other factors may be included in more recent models. Next, please. Federal program links are very useful in making sure that the program is recognized in other ways and other regulatory processes. Certainly, drinking water monitoring waivers, important in the drinking water program. Underground injection control restrictions, making sure that wells, any public wells are recognized and that underground injection is precluded from around those wells. Source water, state source water assessments in the 1997 guidance, providing for continued look at all source waters. Next, please. There are other federal program links. The USDA conservation programs, forest plans, and conservation reserve also recognize wellhead protection and wellhead protection areas. And the Department of Defense Army base water systems are also recognizing and implementing wellhead protection. Question, do your programs coordinate with well protection and UIC and other program staff? Next, please. Underground injection control and well protection, key linkage here. Class 5 wells do provide for recharge of groundwater, but we want to make sure that there is not any risk in providing necessary treatment if there is risk, and other protective actions. Managed aquifer recharge, recharging aquifers for later water use. We need to make sure that we've evaluated natural attenuation possibilities in the subsurface, as well as any pathogen control that is offered naturally in the subsurface, and to ensure that sources of contamination are not nearby those recharging wells. Other groundwater sources include saline and brackish aquifers that are now valuable and being used. And we want to make sure that they are not disposal targets in water scarce regions. Next slide. So as many of you are aware, most states have laws now for groundwater protection and source water protection, and local ordinances have been adopted in municipalities and communities that are relying on groundwater. Many state statutes address source water protection. Connecticut, for example, has the Aquifer Protection Act. It provides for model ordinances, prohibited uses, and best practices. Vermont has source water protection plans and updates. And likewise, state of Washington provides for water system plans and updates that include wellhead protection. And Wisconsin also has well protection program plans for new wells. Otherwise, it is voluntary in that state. Overlay zoning is often used as a way to implement well protection. And we'll highlight 3 communities that have overlay zoning. The many more also have that approach, but we'll highlight Vanden, Vermont, Tumwater, Washington, and Madison, Wisconsin. Common project reviews that these communities see are stormwater ponds, geothermal wells, and fuel storage upgrades. I got that information from talking with representatives from these 3 communities. So in your experience, are local zoning boards checking before or after projects are approved in your communities? Next slide. So let's take a look at these 3 communities in a little more detail. You can see that the population ranges from small communities up to much larger communities, and that the approach that they take to wellhead protection area delineation varies somewhat These three communities all use time of travel. They use modeling. Tumwater has two different protection zones, and the community of Madison has both a time of travel approach that it uses, as well as a fixed radius around wells to capture sources of contamination that they want to focus on. Next slide. So each of these communities has a range of potential contaminant sources that is concerned with. And you can see that most of them have similar ones. And then Tumwater looks at different sources of contamination in their different zones that they manage there. And then Madison takes a different approach and somewhat looks at these on a case-by-case basis, you might say, to determine the frequency of use, the hazard of the proposed chemical or other hazardous substance used in the area. So I think that you can see the range, get a sense of the range of approaches here. Next slide, please. So very interesting. All three of these communities have adopted early detection monitoring, and that in these communities, it's a requirement that they implement. And you can see here that they have different time frames that they consider updating their source protection plans. Brandon every 3 years, Tumwater every 10 years, and Madison as more information is available. Next slide. So there were some other very interesting aspects to the programs of these three communities. In Brandon, they were concerned and focused on managing any private wells that might be considered to be installed in their overlay district. In Tumwater, they indicated that some restricted uses in their well protection areas might be allowed if they used new protective technology. And in other cases, if the chemical use was a quantity of significant concern, they might actually require pollution prevention plans in those cases. And Madison looks out at a very large capture zone, and it's dealing with its well protection program, and looks at other preventative measures that they might determine useful in the expanded areas that they're looking at. Next slide. So thinking about that early warning monitoring, it is a practice that is used in many communities, including the ones that we highlighted, as well as Dayton, Ohio, and states of Ohio, Connecticut. Certainly useful to detect contamination before it impacts the production wells. And I know that in some cases, sanitary survey areas have been suggested as possible well protection areas, and certainly they are. But if it's confined to that look, it often is only about 200 feet that they might go out from the wells to look for that. So question here, are you aware of communities using monitoring wells specifically for wellhead protection early monitoring? Next slide. So private wells may offer a shared benefit if they occur in the well protection area. And the example here is that Door County, Wisconsin, utility provided sampling kits to private well owners. And these private well owners could sample their water for free. And so they'd submit the sample to the a utility for analysis, and helping both the private well owner understand their well water quality, as well as the municipal program, and understanding that. So the data provided much broader protection benefits and decisions. Next slide. Community education and recognition we know continues to be a significant part and have a significant role in wellhead protection. And for example, the Groundwater Foundation has outreach to schools and other organizations and offers groundwater modeling kits, coloring books, and other reading material. We know that recognition programs certainly improve public awareness and local support. And additionally, circuit rider and technical assistance to under-resourced communities provide training for water system operators. So a bottom line on community education and recognition is informed citizens may contribute to fewer land use conflicts. Next slide. So let's just consider further updating of well protection programs. Certainly since the 90s, at that time, emerging contaminants may not have been covered in early plans, and may be something that communities would want to consider in terms of future protection. Drought is creating new demands for quantity protection and supplemental supplies, and actually may affect for some communities that are going deeper for water because of the drought, may affect the quality of their water. So there's a number of factors there. Certainly funding is available through the states, through the Drinking Water and Clean Water State Revolving Funds. And we've got new tools that we didn't have back in the 90s, certainly. Drinking water mapping application system that EPA manages, and the National Groundwater Monitoring Network that the U.S. Geological Survey coordinates. So, question, are you working with communities that need to update their wellhead protection plans? Next slide, please. Closing perspective. Yes, I would say, considering all this, wellhead protection is still critical. It supports economic development through provision of safe and reliable water supply, protects underserved communities, shields against new contaminants and land use pressures that communities may experience, and it protects the groundwater supply for 93 million people in the United States. So it may be time to reassess, considering better mapping, new science, and updated ordinances. Next slide. So a few takeaways. Well protection is cost-effective protection versus costly remediation. Flexibility in local control through well protection, plus state and federal guidance, contributes to the success of protecting our groundwater supplies. And monitoring, early warning monitoring, zoning, education, and funding program updates makes well protection sustainable as a program. So if you had one new wellhead protection tool, what would it be? More funding, better maps, or advanced monitoring technology? Next slide, please. So thank you very much for participating in this early effort on groundwater awareness, and I'd be glad to entertain any questions or comments.
Thanks very much, Chuck. That was fascinating, and really appreciate you assembling all that information on groundwater. The Source Water Collaborative Groundwater Discussion Group, which Chuck is a member of, the reason we were formed was that members really wanted to see the importance of groundwater elevated and to share information like this. So thank you very much. And I love the discussion questions. I feel like we should have a closing list of maybe all of those, but I didn't see any questions yet in the chat. I did see that Kyra Jacobs mentioned that Ray Counter, the superintendent of Brandon, Vermont Fire District, is going to be featured was mentioned here, featured in Chuck's report and presentation, and also will be featured in our upcoming webinar on March 24th. So Ray, if you're still here, I invite you to make any comments and ask questions as well. So let me turn it over just to the audience and see if there are questions that you all would like to ask or experiences you'd like to share about protecting groundwater in your communities and states.
There is a question in the chat, Sylvia.
Okay, I see it now. So from Sarah, have any municipalities established required setback distances for well-based geothermal systems or other large volume wells when proposed to be located, within the wellhead protection zones beyond any required set-asides? I think you can probably see this too, Chuck. Beyond any required setbacks in state code. Something we're starting to consider getting into.
I see. I don't think I can answer that question as specifically as it's worded. I do know that the geothermal systems were something that they were concerned about. Some of the three systems, that was something that was brought up from the people that I had talked to, was their interest in making sure that the installation of geothermal systems, if it was allowed, was going to provide protection for the water in the well protection area. I'm sorry, I can't comment specifically on your question about requiring setbacks for those.
Thank you for asking that, Sarah.
Yes, very interesting question.
I had a question, Chuck. I'm wondering if you have any examples of zoning ordinances for groundwater or a model ordinance, perhaps, that maybe we could share today or maybe on the Source Water Collaborative website.
I don't have one to share, but Kyra, maybe she could comment on that, because I know that the communities in New England and in Vermont, I know that they provided for model ordinances in their state regulation, and so that she may have some additional information on whether those are available and easily accessed.
Yeah, I can put a link in the chat. This is Kyra Jacobs, EPA Region 1 Source Water Protection Coordinator. Vermont, which we'll be featuring in the March 24th webinar, has what's called the Ounce of Prevention document that they created in the 1980s, and I think it was last updated in about 20 years ago, but it's still very relevant. And in that, there's a model groundwater ordinance. And I know that there are at least 2 people from Vermont DEC on the call today, and Ray Counter from Brandon Fire District number 1 is on the call today. And I can drop that in the chat, the Ounce of Prevention Guide, which is a great resource. Again, has a model wellhead ordinance. And I know a lot of these things are quote outdated, but the reality is a lot of these things haven't changed. So the way we do groundwater protection, I believe, in small, rural, medium-sized systems is, as Chuck alluded to, it's education, it's outreach, and Ray can certainly speak to that. And Laura has her hand up, and I apologize, I have to run to another meeting, but I am going to throw that information in the chat. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kyra. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Kyra.
And while we're having questions and discussion, if you all could put your name and organization in the chat, that would be great. Because I think we know a lot of people who are on, but some maybe not, and it would be nice to connect with you. So we have a question from
Sylvia. Laura had her hand up.
Okay, Laura, sorry, I can't see the hands.
No, that's okay. I was
Hi,
just
Laura.
going to say that in Vermont, a lot of the communities do have a groundwater aquifer protection ordinance, but they are dated. And a lot of the communities that have zoning are going and using the overlay district, the aquifer overlay district, to add additional protection, and it's based on land use management. So the question regarding, what municipalities have additional setback requirements, we're seeing more of it of a use requirement. And particularly with the geothermal wells, that's something that the Stowe Vermont recently updated their aquifer protection overlay district and addressed the use of geothermal wells in a source protection area, and depending on the size, determine whether it would be a conditional use or not permitted. So they're using the aquifer overlay district as a way to help manage and provide further control over the types of land uses that are occurring within the source protection areas.
Excellent. And is that something is there a link to some of those ideas that you can place in the chat?
I can send it to Deidre after,
Okay.
because I don't have the links to my fingertips, but
Yeah.
the League of Cities and Towns and the regional planning commissions that work with the municipalities would have information on which municipalities have or are using the overlay districts.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Laura.
Yeah, I can post that if you send it, and I just tried to look it up, but I haven't gotten there yet. I just wanted to also share, there was a question in the Q&A from Rob Fuller. It said, Nevada is majority federal land. Some communities have issues when getting in contact with these federal agencies, when their communication for BLM, for example. What advice would you have for these instances? And then in terms of having these agencies recognize existing wellhead protection or updates that they're trying to implement.
Well, I would say to continue to try and reach out to them. There may be other people on the among the participants that have some observations that have run into the same issue, and they may be able to respond to that better than I. I remember, I hate to say this, but I remember back in the 90s, we actually had a lot of cooperation from other federal agencies when we reached out to them and we're working with them on wellhead protection.
And you might reach out to other states in your region. I think Oregon, for example, has worked with BLM. It might not be the same contact, but maybe through that you could find the one that's your content. I know there has been some difficulty in connecting with them. You also might try the EPA Region 8 source water contact on the EPA website.
So there's a question here. There's a question here that we haven't come back to. That was asked earlier on how is groundwater recharge and injection developing regards to well protection, and I think that's a really important question. And I am not aware, and it's something that I actually would like to obtain more information about, because I have not. I've worked with people that are actively involved in groundwater recharge through injection, and if it's an aquifer recharge and storage system, which uses the same well both to recharge as well as to withdraw water stored, I would say that it's an important question to ask in those circumstances. Certainly, you would want to consider that well as a municipal supply well, and you would want to make sure that you had a delineated area around that, and you would need to understand also through modeling the extent of the area that is storing the water, so that you could make sure that you're protecting that area at a minimum, probably maybe consider beyond that in some cases, but certainly protecting that area as a minimum. But that's something I'm interested in pursuing further. But just to cap this off, if they're recovering water that's been stored from that well for municipal supply, it should have a well protection area around it based on the way I read the federal statute. And you would probably want to consult your state program plan in that regard also.
Yeah, there's a couple other questions in the
Yes.
chat. One is, the next one, just right after that one you mentioned, Chuck, is from Shelley. It says aloha, maybe from Hawaii. Concerned about UIC permits allowing toxic chemicals, no early monitoring system for PGV plant in Puna. Do you see problems with partially open loop systems?
I would think that the state would want to evaluate those partially open loop systems just to make sure that they are being operated in a protective way. I would, if they're open to the aquifer, to me, it suggests that particular type of open loop is exchanging the heat whatever's being exchanged it's water to water and not some chemical that's being used for heat exchange with the aquifer. So that would need to be evaluated, and I would think on a case-by-case basis to make sure that the open loop is, if it's utilizing the aquifer for heat exchange, that it's a water exchange where it's open, a water-to-water exchange.
And I see that Melissa Lang put a link for the New Hampshire Model Groundwater Protection Ordinance in the chat, so thank you for that. And let's see, next. Recently found in the 80s, EPA had done aquifer exclusions. They need to reassess all exclusions, chemicals. Is it time to ban aquifer exclusions?
Oh, you're talking about the aquifer exclusions. Is this under the UIC program? I think that's what is being referred to. Let's see. In the 80s, EPA had done aquifer exclusions, need to reassess all exclusions chemicals. I think under the UIC program, there are certain aquifers that were, I think the word in the law is accepted, that they were allowing some discharges to be made to aquifers that had been determined to not be, at least that portion of the aquifer, not to be a source of water supply. And actually, we had run an article in the NGWA publication, Groundwater Monitoring and Remediation Journal, that you may want to read on that, which it was not written by me, it was written by another member of NGWA, which raised this point about is there significant concern about water supply, certainly in the West, where aquifers should not be accepted, and that they should not allow an injection of waste brines particularly from oil and gas drilling to occur because of the interest in using the aquifers, maybe not in that particular location, but in surrounding locations. So you might want to reference, I don't have that particular reference on the tip of my tongue here, but if you Google it, I'm sure you could find aquifer exemption on the aquifer exemption article I'm referring to in the Groundwater Monitoring and Remediation Journal. It's pretty interesting subject, especially in the West. Very, 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 very concerning in some locations. Any other? Let's see.
It looks like there's a few more comments here.
Yes. One about dangerous hydrocarbons. Problem not being regulated. Well, I honestly can't. I'm not a chemist, so I really couldn't comment on that. But certainly we'd want to have chemicals that are possibly finding their way into groundwater be evaluated, and that's certainly the purpose of the Toxic Substances Control Act, to evaluate chemicals before they're used and in the process of registering their use. So we certainly want to raise that as a concern that should be addressed if there was a problem with this particular contaminant, this particular chemical.
And I found the link to the article about aquifer exemptions. It's time to revisit the regulations. So I just put that in the chat for you.
Oh, great. Well, Deirdre, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deirdre. I'm wondering if anyone in the group here is part of collaborative efforts to protect drinking water sources, for their groundwater particularly.
You know, I also put together your list of questions I could pull up if you'd like and just see if anybody could respond to that. Let me see if I can find it here. And I thought all your questions were really good, Chuck, in your presentation. These are all of them that you asked on the different slides.
Yeah.
So if anybody, go ahead.
I wrote down that last one. What is your favorite wellhead protection tool? Or maybe the one that you wish you had more of. I guess funding would be top of that list. But
that would be interesting to hear from the folks online.
Yeah,
what they have to say about that. I could offer an observation from my perspective, and again, this is just my sort of specific perspective, and that is I would really be focused on data and whether more funding would help obtaining more data, better maps that display the data of use in helping protect groundwater, and any data that could come out of advanced monitoring technology that would be useful. I think from my view, we don't probably have enough data across the country, although certainly the National Groundwater Monitoring Network is trying to make advances in that area and is doing so very well. I think in setting that up, there was an observation that there are certainly areas in around the country that are better monitored than others, and some that are not as well monitored, but could benefit from more monitoring.
I just see that Melissa Noble has commented, maybe from the previous discussion, that state of Utah has 17 of their 29 counties have a drinking water source protection ordinance.
Very good.
And there's some responses to your question, just affirming the advanced monitoring technology. And then fear. I like that from Deborah Johnson in Washington. People are afraid of losing their sources. There's a tool for you. Use the fear, to protect sources. Others, accessibility to novel monitoring systems. In Hawaii, favorite wellhead protection tool is early warning system, keyed into groundwater, and PGV. I don't know what PGV is. What's that acronym? But
so this is Ray Counter. Could I offer my perspective from a very small community regarding that question?
Please do.
Yes, please.
Yes. So for us, the answer would be more funding. The issue is we're so small that there would have to be an emerging problem to convince the people to approve that funding. Our community tends to be has been more reactive as far as the town itself. But from a fire district perspective and source protection, I can say that Brandon Fire District #1 is very proactive and continues to be. But our biggest challenge is educating people on that need. We have a tremendous source and no water quality issues. There are potential sources of contamination, but we do a good job of trying to manage that, and we have an aquifer overlay district, so there is coordination and communication, but it's being a very small community, and source protection is not always something. It's not something you can always see as far as protecting that groundwater, and it's almost like replacing the infrastructure that's under the ground. We can't see underground, so we don't see the condition until the pipe breaks. So, until we have something occur within the source protection area, and then we become reactionary then. And that's why I'm involved in source protection, because we have to be proactive in our approach, because some of these situations we're not going to be able to overcome. It'll be too late. But that's a small town perspective.
So Ray, thank you very much for your perspective. So how do you keep it in front of your community? How do you keep the awareness of well protection or source water protection in front of your community?
Honestly, it's because I drive it. And my concern is I'm not always going to be here. And others may not see the value as much as I do. So I really try to educate more as I go. I don't use it as a stumbling block. I just feel I just needed to educate them more on the importance.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, I see Kyra added the Vermont resource to the chat, so thank you. An ounce of prevention that includes a model groundwater ordinance in the appendix. I don't see other questions.
Somebody from Washington State had a comment about their industrial stormwater general permit. I'm sorry, that's the person's role. I was just wondering if there was anything about incorporating groundwater issues in that permit.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. So I'm Shannon McClellan. I'm the ISGP permit writer for Washington State. So we have in our backstop language in general conditions about protecting groundwater quality standards. We also have discharge to ground language requirements in the ISGP for they have to meet 3 requirements. So we require facilities to sample their off-site discharge to ground, such as like a UIC well. And we also work with the Wellhead Protection Area program as well. But we do have new requirements where they either, like we require on-site discharges to ground. One, if they have PFAS reporting only sampling requirements that we've included for waste management facilities and airport facilities that have historical or known or current use of AFFF. We have, or if it's oh my gosh, it's a very long word and I'm trying to remember it this morning. It's from the Maui EPA case of a functional equivalent point source discharge to surface water. So say like, you know, how in the Maui case, the wastewater treatment system was discharging unknowingly into a lava tube, which was connecting directly into an ocean. So that was considered a functional equivalent point source discharge to surface water. Or we consider them, the third one is a SCOP. We also have UIC well requirements in the permit where the UIC wells that are in place need to meet the requirements of our UIC well permit and protection program. So I can put a link in the chat kind of just showing some of those requirements we have. I'm more so here just learning about wellhead protection areas because we kind of had an interesting chicken or the egg situation in our general permit writers work group. So this is really interesting to hear from others about the wellhead protection areas and the challenges that they're facing in small communities.
Thank you for
Thank
that
you.
too, because we've had some discussions as well about the PFAS residuals, like from treatment residuals, and how small groundwater systems might have to deal with that related to groundwater. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the questions I have for all of you is, in any of the small groundwater systems that you're dealing with, do you allow for any kind of point of entry or point of use treatment that might be applied in cases where you've monitored and observed some contamination, but it's more cost effective, perhaps. I don't know that to be true, but perhaps it's more cost effective in a particular case to allow some treatment, say for PFAS, rather than trying to implement some treatment at a central location.
I don't know if that was someone trying to speak up, but we at ASDWA, the Association of State Drinking Water Administrators, we've been having some discussions with our states about allowing some POU, POE in certain circumstances for PFAS in small communities. And there are some states that have been using it as an interim measure until the system is able to install treatment, but I haven't heard of any that are actually going to plan to use it as a permanent measure to address PFAS. And we are at about 1 minute from the hour, so I just want to make sure that we have time to wrap up and remind people about our webinar coming up on March 24th. Look for announcement about that very soon. Likely tomorrow or early next week. So you want to wrap us up, Sylvia and Chuck? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks very much. Thanks everyone for your participation and your questions and your sharing. And Chuck, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us. I'm really glad this webinar is recorded because I think a lot of people are going to want to turn to it and hear more from you and hear more about remembering the things, all the things that you shared today. So thank you all so much for being here.
And I'd just like to say thank you for all the participants for their good work in protecting groundwater. Thank you.
Yes.